Welcome to Searching the Scriptures. Our Bible teacher will be Gunther von Harringa Sr. In this series of studies, we will be focusing on the book of Judges. In Acts 17:11 we read, "These were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind and searched the Scriptures daily, whether those things were so." So without further ado, let's look into God's Word, the Bible.
Good evening and welcome to Searching the Scriptures. This is going to be Judges 5, Part 28, and today's date is November 3rd, 2017. I'll go ahead and read from verses 13 through 18 of Judges 5. Awake, awake, Deborah, awake, awake, utter a song. Arise, Barak, and lead thy captivity captive, thou son of Abinoam. Then he made him that remaineth have dominion over the nobles among the people. Jehovah made me have dominion over the mighty. Out of Ephraim was there a root of them against Amalek. After thee, Benjamin, among thy people. Out of Machir came down governors, and out of Zebulun they that handle the pen of the writer. And the princes of Issachar were with Deborah, even Issachar and also Barak. He was sent on foot into the valley. For the divisions of Reuben there were great thoughts of heart. Why abodest thou among the sheepfolds, to hear the bleatings of the flocks? For the divisions of Reuben there were great searchings of heart. Gilead abode beyond Jordan, and why did Dan remain in ships? Asher continued on the seashore, and abode in his breaches. Zebulun and Naphtali were a people that jeoparded their lives unto the death in the high places of the field. As I mentioned in our last study, I would like to spend a little extra time looking at the word into the valley, which is Strong's number 6010 in verse 15. As I mentioned previously, we have encountered this word before, for instance, in Judges 1:19 and 34. And Jehovah was with Judah, and he drave out the inhabitants of the mountain, but could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron. And then in verse 34, and the Amorites forced the children of Dan into the mountain, for they would not suffer or allow them to come down to the valley. In our last study, we also noted that the two terms, he was sent and into the valley, having to do with Barak, only surface in two other citations. The first one is in verse 14 of Genesis 37:12 through 14. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, Here am I. And he said to him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale, those are our two words, of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. I also pointed out in our previous lesson that both Barak and Joseph typify the Lord Jesus Christ. And in this account, we see that Joseph would eventually end up in Egypt, a picture of slavery to sin, and be in prison for quite a while until God saw fit to exalt him to a position of being second in command of Egypt, all of which spiritually points to Christ being sold into sin and experiencing death and annihilation before being resurrected, which was accomplished, as we have learned, from the foundation of the world in order to atone for the sins of each of God's elect people. For example, we read in Psalm 105, 16 to 22, concerning Joseph, and again, we see a spiritual portrait of Christ. Moreover, he called for a famine upon the land. He brake the whole staff of bread. He sent a man before them, even Joseph, who was sold for a servant, pardon me, whose feet they hurt with fetters. He was laid in iron until the time that his word came. The word of Jehovah tried him. The king sent and loosed him, even the ruler of the people, and let him go free. This would be Pharaoh. He made him lord of his house and ruler of all his substance, to bind his princes at his pleasure, and to teach his senators wisdom. The identical word for whose feet in Psalm 105:18 is the same term rendered as on foot in Judges 5:15, speaking of Barak. The other thing I would like to point out relates to the word fetters, which are shackles, and are found, this term is only found again in Psalm 149 in verse 8. And I'll read verses 6 to 9 as they relate to our present day, in which God's elect are living in this prolonged day of judgment, and who by God's decree are participating in the judgment of the non-elect, as verse 9 highlights, even as they took an active role in sharing the gospel during the day of salvation previously. Let the high praises of God be in their mouth, and a two-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters. That's our word. It's actually Strong's number 3525. To bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron, to execute upon them the judgment written. This honor have all his saints. Praise ye Jehovah. We also noted that God underscores the word Shechem 3 times, and the number 3 denotes the purpose of God in Genesis 37:12 through 14. There are actually only 2 other references in which we find these same terms, valley and Shechem, together, and both of them are in the Psalms. If we go to Psalm 60, 1 to 6, these 2 words appear together in verse 6. To the chief musician, upon Shushanaduth, Miktam of David, to teach, when he strove with Aram Naharaim, I'll try to say it again, Aram Naharaim, and with Aram Zobah, when Joab returned and smote of Edom in the valley of Salt 12,000. O God, thou hast cast us off, thou hast scattered us, thou hast been displeased. O turn thyself to us again. Thou hast made the earth to tremble, thou hast broken it. Heal the breaches thereof, for it shaketh. Thou hast showed thy people hard things. Thou hast made us to drink the wine of astonishment. Thou hast given a banner to them that fear thee, that it may be displayed because of the truth, Selah, that thy beloved may be delivered. Save with thy right hand and hear me. God hath spoken in his holiness. I will rejoice. I will divide Shechem and mete out the valley of Succoth. Also in Psalm 108, 1 through 7, we find these words surfacing in verse 7. And you'll note that verses 6 to 7 are virtually identical to Psalm 65 through 6. A song or psalm of David. O God, my heart is fixed. I will sing and give praise, even with my glory. Awake, psaltery and harp. I myself will awake early. I will praise thee, O Jehovah, among the people, and I will sing praises unto thee among the nations. For thy mercy is great above the heavens, and thy truth reacheth unto the clouds. Be thou exalted, O God, above the heavens, and thy glory above all the earth, that thy beloved may be delivered. Save with thy right hand, and answer me. God hath spoken in his holiness. I will rejoice. I will divide Shechem, and mete out the valley of Succoth. We wonder about the spiritual meaning of Shechem, a place of great spiritual relevancy in the above accounts, and in particular the intriguing expression, I will divide, which is found both in Psalm 60, verse 6, and in Psalm 108, verse 7, which are the only places where it is found together. However, I am getting a bit off track, so I think it might be best to wait until we get to Judges 9, Lord willing, in which this term is utilized many, many times in this one chapter. So with that said, let's move on to the last phrase in verse 15. For the divisions of Reuben, there were great thoughts of heart, which is repeated almost identically in the latter part of verse 16. There we read, for the divisions of Reuben, there were great searchings of heart. These two words, for the divisions, which is 65:90, and of Reuben, 72:05, only appear together in this verse. So once again, we'll have to consider them separately. Besides verses 15 and 16 of Judges 5, for the divisions is only found one more time, and it's in Job 20, verses 4 to 29, in which this word, the divisions, is translated as the rivers in verse 17. And we'll see that this chapter deals with the fate of the wicked and parallels Job 18, which I quoted in our last study yesterday. Again, this is Job 24 to 29. Knowest thou not this of old, since man was placed upon earth, that the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment? Though his excellency mount up to the heavens, and his head reach unto the clouds, yet he shall perish forever like his own dung. They which have seen him shall say, where is he? He shall fly away as a dream, and shall not be found. Yea, he shall be chased away as a vision of the night. The eye also which saw him shall see him no more, neither shall his place any more behold him. His children shall seek to please the poor, and his hand shall restore their goods. His bones are full of the sin of his youth, which shall lie down with him in the dust. Though wickedness be sweet in his mouth, though he hide it under his tongue, though he spare it and forsake it not, but keep it still within his mouth, yet his meat in his bowels is turned. It is the gall or the poison of asps within him. He hath swallowed down riches, and he shall vomit them up again. God shall cast them out of his belly. He shall suck the poison of asps. The viper's tongue shall slay him. He shall not see the rivers. That's our word, 6590. The floods, the brooks of honey and butter. That which he labored for shall he restore, and shall not swallow it down. According to his substance shall the restitution be, and he shall not rejoice therein, because he hath oppressed and hath forsaken the poor, because he hath violently taken away an house which he builded not. Surely he shall not feel quietness in his belly. He shall not save of that which he desired. There shall none of his meat be left. Therefore shall no man look for his goods. In the fullness of his sufficiency he shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. When he is about to fill his belly, God shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him, and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. He shall flee from the iron weapon, and the bow of steel shall strike him through. It is drawn and cometh out of the body, yea, the glittering sword cometh out of his gall. Terrors are upon him. All darkness shall be hid in his secret places. A fire not blown shall consume him. It shall go ill with him that is left in his tabernacle. The heaven shall reveal his iniquity, and the earth shall rise up against him. The increase of his house shall depart, and his goods shall flow away in the day of his wrath. This is the portion of a wicked man from God, and the heritage appointed unto him by God. It might also be helpful to look at the root word of this term, 6590, which is rendered here as the rivers, and as the divisions in Judges 5, 15, and 16. It does have an identically spelled root word, which is 6385, and that root word, 6385, occurs in 4 other references that we want to examine, since they are all rendered as divide. And Lord willing, will help to shed further light on what these divisions might represent spiritually. For example, the first one is found in Genesis 10:25, and there we read this amazing statement, really. And unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Now, Peleg is Strong's number 6389, and its identically spelled root word is 6388, also pronounced Peleg, and 6388 in turn is the root word that we're looking at, 6385, which is this word divided, which is the root word for divisions that we saw in Judges 5, 15, and 16. and also translated as the rivers in the Job, the Job 8, Job 20. Now, this is also repeated in 1 Chronicles 1:19, what we read here in Genesis 10:25. And unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of the one was Peleg, because in his days the earth was divided. And his brother's name was Joktan. Also, in Job 38:25-30, we find this word 6385 included in verse 25 and rendered there as who hath divided. In this chapter, that is chapter 38, in which God begins to question Job in an unrelenting manner over the course of the next 3 chapters, that is Job 39-41, regarding what God knows or what God does. Who hath divided a watercourse for the overflowing of waters, or a way for the lightning of thunder, to cause it to rain on the earth, where no man is, on the wilderness, wherein there is no man, to satisfy the desolate and waste ground, and to cause the bud of the tender herb to spring forth? Hath the rain a father? Or who hath begotten the drops of dew? Out of whose womb came the ice, and the hoary frost of heaven? Who hath gendered it? The waters are hid as with a stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. The 4th reference is in verse 9 of Psalm 55, 1-15, and here this word appears as and divide. To the chief musician on Neganoth Maskil, a psalm of David. Give ear to my prayer, O God, and hide not thyself from my supplication. Attend unto me and hear me. I mourn in my complaint and make a noise because of the voice of the enemy, because of the oppression of the wicked. For they cast iniquity upon me, and in wrath they hate me. My heart is sore pained within me, and the terrors of death are fallen upon me. Fearfulness and trembling are come upon me, and horror hath overwhelmed me. And I said, oh, that I had wings like a dove, for then would I fly away and be at rest. Lo, then would I wander far off and remain in the wilderness, Selah. I would hasten my escape from the windy storm and tempest. Destroy, O Lord, and divide their tongues. That's our word, and divide. For I have seen violence and strife in the city. Day and night they go about it upon the walls thereof. Mischief also and sorrow are in the midst of it. Wickedness is in the midst thereof. Deceit and guile depart not from her streets. For it was not an enemy that reproached me, then I could have borne it. Neither was it he that hated me, that did magnify himself against me. Then I would have hid myself from him. But it was thou, a man mine equal, my guide and mine acquaintance. We took sweet counsel together, and walked unto the house of God in company. Let death seize upon them, and let them go down quick or alive into hell or the grave, for wickedness is in their dwellings and among them. we see from the foregoing examples that there is a definite relationship with the earth being divided in the days of Peleg, along with the dividing of tongues as well as watercourses. In fact, the identically spelled root word for the man Peleg is rendered as river 9 times and once as stream. That's Strong's number 6388. And of course, there's quite a bit to think about and pray about with all this information, that God might continue to open our eyes to what He wants us to understand spiritually in all of this. And Lord willing, in our next study, I'll try, with God's help, to tie some of these things together.
Thank you for joining us today for Searching the Scriptures. Until next time, to God be the glory.